What is going on, you guys? Brandon here, aka Brawadis, and today I am bringing you guys a brand new video. First of all, before I get into the video, I just want to wish everybody a happy Halloween, and if you're going out tonight, whatever you're doing, have fun, enjoy your time, but also remember, be safe, because there's a lot of crazy people out there, especially tonight. So for today's video, as I'm sure you could tell from the title and thumbnail, where myself, Brandon, aka Brawadis, thinks Eric Bledsoe is going to get traded. For those who haven't really been following the NBA and don't really know about the whole situation, Eric Bledsoe sent out a tweet saying, "I don't want to be here," and everybody knows he was talking about being on the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns sent Eric Bledsoe home. He is no longer traveling with the team. He is no longer playing for the team, no longer practicing with the team. So now the next step is finding Eric Bledsoe a new home, trading Eric Bledsoe. This whole process, I know a lot of people are getting impatient, but let me just tell you, it could take a while, and let me tell you why. Because every single player that was a free agent this summer and signed a new deal cannot be traded until December 15th. And a lot of people might think, oh, well, that's only a couple players that, you know, were free agents and stuff. Well, no, there were almost 150 players that fall under that clause, and that's almost 30% of the whole entire NBA. So then you have the Phoenix Suns general manager who is trying to trade Eric Bledsoe, but 30% of the NBA is off limits until December 15th. So it's kind of hard to make a deal right now. I'm not saying it's impossible. Hey, for all we know, I could go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and Eric Bledsoe's traded. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be a safer bet to think he's going to be traded closer to, you know, Christmas time. But there are some pieces in play right now that could have Eric Bledsoe traded sooner rather than later. And me being an Eric Bledsoe fan, I'd rather see him be traded sooner, because it's not fun knowing that one of my favorite players is, you know, sitting at home not playing on an NBA team when the season is going on. So I'm gonna have my list of 3 teams where I think he's gonna end up. But to start it off, I kind of want to give my honorable mentions, meaning the teams that I think he has a chance to go to, but I really don't think it's going to happen. So we're going to start off with the Orlando Magic. And again, like I said, these next couple teams are teams that he could end up going to. I wouldn't really be surprised, but I just don't see it happening. So for Orlando, these are not the same Orlando Magic that we've seen the past couple years. Orlando has gotten off to a really hot start. They're actually top 3 in the Eastern Conference. And I know it's really early, I know that, but they have beaten some really good teams this season, and their players have looked really good. And what happens when a team that wasn't supposed to be good gets off to a really hot start? They start looking at, oh shoot, we're actually good, we might have a chance this season. So they start looking at ways to improve the team. The Orlando Magic already have dominant big men in Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon has played like a beast this season. They also brought in Jonathan Simmons this offseason. They also have Evan Fournier. They have some nice pieces, and they actually have an asset that the Suns would want, at least would make a little bit of sense, and that is Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton is on a rookie contract, so they'll need to throw more money in there to make the contracts work with the Eric Bledsoe trade. Second, Eric Bledsoe is kind of hinting at how he wants to go to a championship contender. And again, like I said, the Magic have gotten off to a really hot start, but it's still really early in the season. So I don't know how much Bledsoe would like it there, and that would be too much of a risk for Orlando, considering Bledsoe is a free agent next year. Not after the season, but after next season. So it's just too much of a risk for Orlando. My next honorable mention would be the New York Knicks. And actually, the Phoenix Suns have gone on the phone with the Knicks trying to make an Eric Bledsoe trade work. The Suns have been targeting New York Knicks rookie point guard Frank Ntilikina. Sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, it's hard to pronounce, but that's what the Phoenix Suns have been targeting. However, the New York Knicks are in a rebuilding phase, and as much as Eric Bledsoe would have made sense there when Carmelo was there, now it's just kind of hard seeing a trade go down, because usually when a team is rebuilding, it's kind of hard for them to want a point guard in his prime and trying to win right now. Eric Bledsoe wants to go to a place where he can win now, whether it's championship or playoffs, he's ready to win. And I don't think the New York Knicks are in that position right now. They're clearly rebuilding and pushing behind the Kristaps Porzingis. So as badly as the Suns want Frank Ntilikina, or also they wanted Willy Hernangomez, first of all, I don't think the Knicks would give up their rookie point guard from France, and it just wouldn't really make sense for both sides. So I was surprised that they actually had some conversations, some discussions, but I just don't think this makes sense. Third, I'm going to put the Clippers out there. I really don't think a deal is possible at all. The only reason I'm even mentioning the Clippers as a possible spot is because when Eric Bledsoe tweeted, "I don't want to be here," DeAndre Jordan then tweeted, "Come home, bro," or "Come back home," something like that. So that's the only reason I'm putting the Clippers in this spot. But in reality, if we're factoring in, making contracts work and trade assets and all that, the Clippers don't really have what it takes to make a trade for a player like Eric Bledsoe right now. My last honorable mention team before I get into who I actually think Eric Bledsoe is going to end up with is the New Orleans Pelicans. And honestly, knowing Eric Bledsoe, I would be happy for him if he landed in New Orleans. And here's why. Him and DeMarcus Cousins are really, really close friends. They hang out all the time in the offseason. They talk all the time. They're close. The New Orleans Pelicans they're a team that has enough talent to make the playoffs. They're trying to do more than that. They have Anthony Davis. They have DeMarcus Cousins. They have Drew Holiday. I don't know if Eric Bledsoe will push them into, championship contender status, because that's just asking for way too much. But there's no doubt he'll make them a better team. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, well, Brandon, they already have Drew Holiday, so where would Eric Bledsoe play?" Well, the neat thing about Holiday and Bledsoe together is that they could play off of each other. One could play the 2 guard and one could play the 1. Both of them aren't true point guards. They could both play combo guards, and I think it would fit nicely. The only problem here is, once again, trade assets. I just don't know who the Pelicans would give the Suns to just kind of make this deal work, to push this deal through. And I guess the Pelicans could give up their first round pick. With Eric Bledsoe, they would most likely be a playoff team, so it wouldn't hurt them too much to give up their pick. But I don't know if the Suns would want, a playoff team's first round pick for Eric Bledsoe. So it kind of makes the deal hard. I know the Pelicans would want to do it because Boogie Cousins is a free agent this summer, and acquiring one of his best friends would obviously make him want to stay. But I just don't know how much the Suns want to deal with the New Orleans Pelicans, considering the lack of assets that they have. Now to get on to my top 3 teams that I actually think Eric Bledsoe would end up on. I would bet money that Eric Bledsoe ends up on one of these 3 teams come February. And these are in no particular order, guys. I just think any of these 3 teams fit with Eric Bledsoe really well, and they have the assets to give the Phoenix Suns. First, the Denver Nuggets. You look at Denver and you look at their big men, and they're stacked with Nikola Jokic, Paul Millsap, and even their small forwards, Wilson Chandler, Will Barton. They're fine right there. Then you look at the backcourt. Okay, Gary Harris at shooting guard is just fine. And then you look at their point guards. So they drafted Emmanuel Mudiay very high a couple years ago, and I don't want to say he's disappointed, but Denver clearly wasn't happy with his progress, considering the fact that they drafted another guard just a year later in Jamal Murray, and he's actually been starting for them this season. And Denver they've gotten off to, I don't want to say a bad start, but a shaky start, especially considering that they were expecting to be a playoff team this season. And I even picked them to be a playoff team this season. So they haven't gotten off to the best start yet. And I think Eric Bledsoe fits on this team so perfectly. Look at the big men that Eric Bledsoe has played with in Phoenix. You go back to, I don't know, Channing Frye, Miles Plumlee, Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris. They haven't really had any really good big men. And then you throw him onto Denver, where he could work with Paul Millsap and Nikola Jokic, and I think Bledsoe would be ecstatic, because what's a point guard's best friend is a really good big man. So I think this would be a match made in heaven, and at the same time, the Nuggets have the pieces to make it work. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big Emmanuel Mudiay fan. I don't know how good he's going to end up being, but there's no denying he's a young talent. He was a high draft pick, and you can't officially call him a bust because he's still very young. So I think that's the piece that the Suns would want. Actually, as a matter of fact, a couple months ago, the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets had talks of Eric Bledsoe for Emmanuel Mudiay and a first-round pick. I don't know why that never fell through. Maybe the Suns wanted to keep Bledsoe, but now at this time, with the whole "I don't want to be here," yeah, I don't think the Phoenix Suns want to keep Eric Bledsoe anymore. And on top of Emmanuel Mudiay, to kind of make the contracts work, the Denver Nuggets would probably throw in Kenneth Faried, someone who is a talented player, but he just doesn't get minutes anymore in Denver, considering how many talented big men they have. So I think this deal is, if the Phoenix Suns get their point guard of the future, or at least they hope they get their point guard of the future. Again, I'm not a huge Emmanuel Mudiay fan, but I wouldn't be too upset with this trade. They also get Kenneth Faried, who I don't know how many minutes he would play because the Suns are trying to develop Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender. So this trade makes a lot of sense for both sides. But I think it helps Denver more than it helps the Suns. But I don't think the Suns would be complaining about an Emmanuel Mudiay and Kenneth Faried return. Oh, and on a side note, I think Jamal Murray is going to be an exceptional player. I think he's a really, really good player. But right now, in 2017, Eric Bledsoe is a better point guard. So how much better would the Nuggets be if Bledsoe was a starter and then they had someone like Jamal Murray to come off the bench and just light it up and put up a bunch of threes? The next team, I think this makes sense for both sides, is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. And I honestly hope that this trade goes through for the Phoenix Suns and the Bucks because I think it helps both of them equally. So the Phoenix Suns, just like the Denver Nuggets, have had talks. They've had discussions with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I was actually surprised that the Bucks even offered Thon Maker because I read a lot of different NBA articles, and knowing the Milwaukee Bucks fan base, they love Thon Maker. So the fact that they've even thrown him out there in trade talks was kind of surprising to me, and the fact that the Suns turned it down was even more surprising, but it kind of makes sense. Like I said previously, the Suns have Dragon Bender, they have Marquise Chris, and they're trying to develop them. Those are two big men. So if you bring in Thon Maker, it's just, we all know what happened when the Suns had 3 point guards in Goran Dragic, Eric Bledsoe, and Isaiah Thomas. And I guess the Phoenix Suns want to stay away from creating another logjam just because of how all that ended up. We also can't forget the Suns have Allen Williams, who is not playing this season because of an injury, sadly. But he's another big man that they have. And when he comes back, he's under contract for 2 more years. So the Suns aren't really looking for a big man in return for Eric Bledsoe. And that's why they countered the offer of Thon Maker with the Bucks for, we want Malcolm Brogdon, and that's who the Phoenix Suns have their eyes on. He's a perfect fit next to Devin Booker. If you look at his stats, you're not going to find, oh, Malcolm Brogdon averages 30 points a game and he can hit 10 threes in a game and, oh my gosh, he's a superstar. No, that's not what you're going to find in Malcolm Brogdon. But if you actually watch the game, Brogdon is a really, really smart player. He's a good defender. He could shoot the spot up three, and he's not a ball hog. He's not selfish. He passes the ball around, which makes him the perfect fit next to Devin Booker. And anytime the Suns are looking for a trade, at least for now, they're looking at, okay, who can we get that fits next to Devin Booker? Because Devin Booker, whether you like it or not, is the face of this franchise, and he's going to be the face of the franchise going forward for at least the next 5-6 years. So I've talked to a lot of Suns fans who are like, oh, well, Malcolm Brogdon only averages, this many points a game. And okay, that's fine, but how about you actually watch the games and see that Malcolm Brogdon is a great player, and that's exactly why the Milwaukee Bucks turned down that offer from the Phoenix Suns. So the Milwaukee Bucks and Phoenix Suns, there's something there. There's attraction there. They're just fighting to get a deal done. Now for Milwaukee's side, I already mentioned why the Suns would love to have Malcolm Brogdon. For Milwaukee's side, okay, so they have the Greek Freak. They have Giannis, who has been amazing this season and honestly could end up being the best player in the league. I want to say as soon as next season, but quite honestly, he could end up being the best player in the NBA maybe by the end of this season. I don't know, but he's been great. The shooting guard spot, and they have Chris Middleton. Then you look at Jabari Parker, who is injured right now, but when he comes back, don't forget about him. He's extremely talented. And then you have that point guard spot, or I guess Giannis plays point guard, but the official point guard spot where you could slot in a player like Eric Bledsoe, who averages 20 points a game, 6 assists, and I just think the defensive fit, Eric Bledsoe is also a great defender, and there's no denying, I mean, Brogdon is a great player, but Eric Bledsoe right now in the prime of his career is the better player. So you just think about that fit next to Giannis, and then you factor in, okay, if you've seen the Cleveland Cavaliers play this season, they haven't been at the top of their game. You then look at the Boston Celtics, and although they've looked just fine, they lost Gordon Hayward. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. You then look at Milwaukee, and they've actually played really, really good basketball. So the Cavs are struggling. LeBron might be out after the season. The Celtics lost arguably their best player or their second best player in Gordon Hayward. Milwaukee might be thinking to themselves, hey, this is our time to make a run. Let's trade Brogdon, get a proven star like Eric Bledsoe, and let's try to push for a top 2, top 3 seed in the East and see what can happen in the playoffs. So I think this trade makes sense for both sides. If I had to put my money on it, if I had to guess, I think a deal eventually gets done with Milwaukee for Malcolm Brogdon. And I've talked to a lot of Bucks fans who are like, bro, the Suns aren't getting Brogdon. We're going to trade Matthew Dellavedova and John Henson. Well, let me inform those fans something really quick, and it's kind of common sense. When you trade for someone, you kind of have to give other players away. The NBA isn't a one-sided business. You can't just, oh, we'll give you trash and you give us a star player. No, you got to give up to get better. That's just how things work. So I guess you got to wake up from your dream if you think Eric Bledsoe is going to be traded for Matthew Dellavedova. I know Milwaukee wanted to give Thon Maker. The Suns turned that down. They asked for Brogdon. The Bucks turned that down. But that's always how trade negotiations work. They never start off with, okay, yeah, deal. The last team I could see Eric Bledsoe end up going to, and this has been talked about a lot, teaming up with his boy LeBron James and ending up on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, hold on. At first glance, you might look at this and be like, Brandon, the Cavs have Isaiah Thomas and Derrick Rose. Where's Eric Bledsoe going to fit? Well, how about this? Isaiah Thomas is out until at least January 1st. Okay, that's a good 2 months from now. And let's not forget, he's a free agent after this season. And there's been no indication that he's going to re-sign in Cleveland or that Cleveland wants to give him that $30+ million deal that he's been asking for. Then you have Derrick Rose, who obviously is a really, really good player. Despite his injuries, he could still put up numbers and he could still play. But he was brought to Cleveland to be a sixth man, to play behind Isaiah Thomas and to kind of give them that jolt off the bench that they need. Then you look at Eric Bledsoe, who is not a free agent after the season. He still has 2 more years left. He's only making $14 million a year compared to Isaiah Thomas's $30+ million that he's asking for. You then factor in that he's under the same agency as LeBron James. You then factor in that he's really, really close to LeBron and they work out together every single summer. They hang out, they go out together, they talk all the time, really close friends. You then factor in that LeBron James is a free agent after this season and the Cleveland Cavaliers, although they're not saying it, probably behind the scenes, they are begging him to stay because he has given no indication that he's for sure going to stay. You then look at the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have gotten off to a shaky, I'm just going to say they've gotten off to a bad start. And I know you can't stress too much because the season just started, but they haven't gotten off to a good of a start as they wanted to. And then you look around, who is a player on the trade market that you could acquire right now? A lot of Cavs fans want DeMarcus Cousins, but the truth is, he's not going to be available till February at the trade deadline, and that's the earliest. Maybe the Pelicans are doing good, aka they just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, they blew them out by 20+ points, and they're going to maybe keep DeMarcus Cousins. They might not even trade him. So then you look around, who's available to trade for right now that will help LeBron James win this season and also maybe help him stay and re-sign in Cleveland? Maybe that person is Eric freaking Bledsoe. And this trade makes so much sense. I know I was talking about how he's most likely going to end up in Milwaukee, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see him go to Cleveland. And if it were up to Eric Bledsoe, he'd be in Cleveland right now. He loves LeBron James. They're boys. And Eric Bledsoe wants to play for a championship contender. I know Milwaukee, if they get Eric Bledsoe, has a chance to be a contender. But Cleveland is already a contender, so why would Eric Bledsoe not want to go there? Now the tricky thing becomes, you know Cleveland has that Brooklyn pick. They acquired that in the Kyrie Irving trade. And I don't know how badly Cleveland wants to use it. I think they'd rather flip that pick for a star to try to win this season and convince LeBron James to stay and re-sign. Will they trade the Brooklyn pick for Eric Bledsoe or will they want a bigger name? Let me elaborate. If this was a couple of weeks ago, I would say no way Cleveland gives up Brooklyn's pick for a player like Eric Bledsoe. I would say it would take much more than that. A couple weeks later, aka today, and I think that pick is movable because you look at the way Brooklyn has played, they haven't been as bad as what everybody thinks they are. The Bulls have been worse. The Atlanta Hawks have been worse. The Mavericks have been worse. Heck, even the Phoenix Suns have been worse than the Brooklyn Nets. There has been a lot of teams that Brooklyn has looked better than. So that pick, what once looked like the number 1 or number 2 pick, now looks like, hey, that pick might be a 6th, 7th, 8th overall pick. And words from LeBron James' mouth, I'm not sure exactly what he said, so don't quote me exactly, but he said something like, the pick's not even going to be that good anyways because, hey, Brooklyn actually beat Cleveland and they have no incentive to tank. They're playing hard out there every single game. They got no reason to tank. So I think that pick was once untouchable. And now you look at it a couple weeks after the season started, and I think that pick is tradable. What the Phoenix Suns might have to do on top of giving up Eric Bledsoe, they might also have to throw in Tyson Chandler, or if the Cavs don't want to take the money that Tyson Chandler makes, the Suns might have to throw in Miami's first round pick, because the Suns own Miami Heat first round pick for this season. But who's to say that Miami is going to be better than Brooklyn? So it just makes it kind of tricky. But for starters, the Suns have to take on Iman Shumpert and Channing Frye just to make the money work. So it would be a Iman Shumpert, Channing Frye for Eric Bledsoe. Obviously, that's not enough, so the Suns would be pulling for that Brooklyn pick. And I don't know. In my opinion, do the Suns really want another first-round pick? I know the Brooklyn pick is going to be high. It's going to be a nice pick to have. But the Suns already have their own pick. They already have Miami's first-round pick. And if they were to acquire Brooklyn's first-round pick, bringing in 3 rookies in the same season is just so... It's hard. It's something that you don't see too often. And if I'm the Suns, I would rather be going for a player like Malcolm Brogdon, if we're being honest. But you can't complain. If you get the Brooklyn pick, you should be ecstatic. As a Suns fan, I would be ecstatic. But I would just rather have Malcolm Brogdon because of the way the Nets have been playing this season. They haven't looked too bad. Whether it's the Denver Nuggets, Milwaukee Bucks, or Cleveland Cavaliers, they all make pretty much a lot of sense. And I think if it was up to Eric Bledsoe, he would be in Cleveland right now playing for the Cavs. So we'll see if a deal gets done there. That Brooklyn pick is what makes everything so, difficult. We don't know how good or bad the Nets are going to be, so it's so hard to gauge the trade value of that pick right now, this early into the season. Milwaukee, we know they already said they didn't want to give up Brogdon, but who knows if the Cavs keep struggling, or maybe the Bucks want to seize their opportunity and make a trade for Bledsoe. Who knows? It's so tricky, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if a deal was done today or tomorrow, or at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it's freaking Christmas time and Eric Bledsoe is still a member of the Phoenix Suns. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video because I get a lot of questions every single day. Brandon, where do you think Eric Bledsoe is going to end up? So I hope this kind of gave you my answer. If 20 plus minutes worth of me talking doesn't give you an answer, then I don't know. I apologize. Anyways, happy Halloween. Enjoy tonight. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your friends. Have fun. But also remember, be safe. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I love you guys all. Brandon, a.k.a. Brawadis, and I'm out. Peace.